What really decides the fate of a revolution? It's a story that isn't always told on battlefields with armies and weapons. Sometimes it's told in the quiet, internal struggles of conscience and character.
It's one of those big, fundamental questions, isn't it? You can have two movements with the exact same goal, the same enemy, even the same passion, and yet one of them achieves this incredible victory while the other just implodes. So why? Well, the answer, according to the sources we're looking at today, lies somewhere much, much deeper than strategy.
The idea we're digging into here argues that the real deciding factor isn't military genius or clever political moves, it's the integrity, the character of the leadership. The real war is fought and ultimately won on the inside.
To really get a feel for this, our first story takes us to post-war Paris. This is a moment where years of unbelievably brutal conflict are about to get distilled into a quiet, but wow, what a profound test of character. Okay, so picture this. After a long, grueling war, the United States puts an offer on the table for peace talks. They invite this tiny delegation of Vietnamese revolutionaries, we're talking just 4 people, to Paris, the heart of Western luxury, to negotiate the entire future of their nation. And here's where the strategy comes into play. The Americans prepared a welcome that was clearly designed to soften them up, to overwhelm them. The best hotels, private cars, incredible food, a whole world of comfort being deliberately offered to people who had known nothing but extreme hardship. But the delegation's response? Nobody saw it coming. They turned down every single bit of it. No 5-star hotels. Instead, they found a Vietnamese student living in a suburb of Paris and asked if they could stay in their simple little home. You can imagine, the Americans were just stunned. When they were asked why, this is what the head of the delegation said. I mean, just think about the depth of that for a second. They understood that their harsh lifestyle, sleeping on rocks, eating whatever they could scrounge up in the mountains, that wasn't just a side effect of war. No, that was armor. It was armor for their principles. To change their lifestyle, even for a week, was to risk changing their very soul. And this right here, this is the core idea. Their refusal wasn't just some symbolic gesture. It was a powerful declaration that they could not be bought, they could not be swayed, and they could not be softened. That unwavering moral discipline, it became their single greatest strength at the negotiating table, and it ultimately led to a historic victory.
And get this, before leaving, the delegation refused to even shake hands at the airport. Their leader delivered this final, chilling line. For them, the two things were completely inseparable. Personal integrity wasn't just personal, it was national.
So that story from Paris, it's about so much more than one negotiation. It really shines a light on a universal principle. It shows us what the most valuable asset in any struggle truly is.
So what are we really talking about here? It's this concept, moral discipline. And it's not just about being a good person. In the context of a revolution, it's actually a strategic weapon. It's the ability to stay completely locked in on the cause, refusing any distraction, especially the very seductive distraction of comfort.
And this is the part that is so crucial to understand. They saw absolutely no difference between their own internal moral compass and the destiny of their country. To compromise one was to betray the other. Their conscience was, in a very real sense, the nation's last line of defense. All right, so now, let's flip the coin over. Let's look at the other side of this. Decades later, one of those very same legendary Vietnamese leaders, General Giap, he sees a starkly different approach to revolution. So, General Giap travels to meet with leaders of the Palestinian cause. He's arriving expecting to find kindred spirits, right? People forged in the same fire of struggle and sacrifice that he was. But what he actually found, it just shocked him to his core. The contrast couldn't have been more jarring. I mean, on one side, you have Giap's reality, a life of extreme, unbelievable hardship, all in service of a cause. And on the other side, he sees leaders driving luxury German cars, wearing expensive Italian suits, smoking Cuban cigars, all while their own people were living in refugee camps. The disconnect was just staggering. After seeing all of this, General Giap delivered a pretty devastating verdict. He told them flat out, your revolution will never succeed. And why? Because you can't serve two masters. You can't fight for the liberation of the people from the comfort of a palace. The two worlds, he argued, are just fundamentally incompatible.
So what happens when a movement chooses wealth over revolution? Well, General Giap's warning basically lays out this predictable and frankly tragic path to collapse.
It's like this four-step decay, a well-worn path to ruin. It all starts when leaders embrace luxury. That immediately creates a huge gap between them and the people they claim to represent. Pretty soon, the mission isn't about the cause anymore. It's about protecting their new wealth. And at that point, the movement is hollow. As Giap so bluntly put it, its leaders have become nothing more than thieves, and its collapse is just a matter of time.
So this really points to two critical failure points. First, without a clear, principled consciousness, a struggle just devolves into chaos and violence. And second, when it's bankrolled by outside wealth that just enriches the leadership, its original purpose is almost always drowned in comfort and corruption. Okay, so if that's the anatomy of failure, then what's the blueprint for success? What is the real, true price of victory? When you boil it all down, the lessons from that Vietnamese example really stand on these four pillars. Moral discipline has to be the non-negotiable core. A deep connection to the people that's real, not just for show, meaning you share their suffering. A commitment to simple living that keeps you honest. And maybe most important of all, placing the purpose of the movement far, far above any personal gain or comfort. And I think that brings us to the ultimate point here. The greatest threat to any movement, any organization, heck, any nation, is rarely the enemy you can see. It's the small compromises, it's the lure of comfort, it's the slow erosion of principles that corrupts and rots a cause from the inside out. And that leaves us with a pretty timeless question to think about. When we look at history, and even when we look at the world today, we have to ask ourselves, are great causes actually defeated by their opponents, or do they first somehow defeat themselves?